I want to turn your attention to Mark the 10th chapter. We're going to look at Mark the 10th chapter. Jesus left that place and went into the region of Judea and across the Jordan. Again, crowds of people came to him, and as was his custom, he taught them. Some Pharisees came and tested him, asking him, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife?" And then it goes on to talk about different things that Jesus taught in the kingdom. Now the book of Mark, the 10th chapter, is the middle point of Mark's gospel. The middle point being that the first 10 chapters were Jesus getting known by the people. By the time you get to the 10th chapter, he is famous. Wherever he goes, he is followed by crowds. And by the time you get to the 10th chapter of Mark, he is teaching on a lot of basic spiritual kingdom truths. In the 46th verse. Then they came to Jericho as Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city. A blind man, Bartemaeus, that is the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." Then he rebuked him and said, "Be quiet." But he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called the blind man. "Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you." Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," Jesus said. "Your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the way. Now this is not the last time in the scriptures. It's the first time, but it's not the last time we see Bartimaeus. It appears from historical records and appears from the Gospels and from some of the New Testament that Bartimaeus followed Jesus the rest of his life. Now whether Bartimaeus became a disciple or not, I don't know. But it does show that Bartimaeus followed Jesus, had great determination. After receiving his sight, he seems to have dropped everything and gone where Jesus went. Now this is a very interesting passage for me. I may be wrong, and the Lord may sit down with me at judgment, maybe after, and say, "Keith, we need to talk about this passage because you quite didn't understand it." That may be. But if that be the case, it's one of the only passages that I can find where Jesus was depressed. Now Jesus had reason to be depressed. He's about to face his arrest and crucifixion. He knows that this next week he is going to face his death. Nobody else knows it. The disciples don't know it. He's explained his death many times, but he didn't say anything about the time for it. His family doesn't understand it. In fact, the disciples said to Jesus, "Why are we going to Jerusalem? You know they're mad at you there. You know they'll arrest you or something. We should go somewhere else and you can do your preaching and build more crowds." His family said, "Please don't go. Please do not go to Jerusalem. You're going to end up there." But Jesus was bound and determined to head at this point to Jerusalem. Now let me tell you why, and I could be wrong, as I say. Let me tell you why I get the impression that he was depressed. And I know that I would be depressed if I were walking to my death. In fact, I know more than this. I'm not sure I'm man enough to be able to do it. Jesus knows he's about to die. So now in the beginning passage, before we see Bartimaeus, we go into where Jesus predicts his death. Here he is talking with his disciples. They were on their way to Jerusalem with Jesus leading the way, and the disciples were astonished, while those who followed were afraid. Again, he took the 12 aside and told them what was going to happen to him. We are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be betrayed to the, I can't read that, priests, the chief priests and teachers of the law. When it becomes Jesus' words and it turns red, I have trouble seeing it. They will condemn him to death and will hand him over to the Gentiles, who will mock him and spit on him, flog him and kill him. 3 days later, he will rise. They didn't understand he was talking about the next week. They figured he was just teaching them like he was always teaching them. He talked about the temple falling apart. So the disciples listened. Yeah, we know, but let's not go to Jerusalem now. Voltaire, when you loan me a Bible, I don't want it to have any more bread. They replied, then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. Teacher, they said, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. Now here's where Jesus demonstrates a certain lack of personality. What do you want me to do for you? Now that's a simple question. But you'll notice with Bartimaeus, in the next verse over in 31, when Bartimaeus breaks his way through the crowd and is finally able to grab hold of Jesus, Jesus says to him, same thing. What do you want me to do for you? Now you'll notice in many of the other passages, that's not Jesus' attitude. Jesus was always flamboyant. He said, how can I heal you? Your faith will heal you. I'll show you what I'll do. He always seemed to have some kind of greeting. But now, heading towards Jerusalem, when John and Zebedee stand in front of him and said, listen, we want a special place in heaven, Jesus says to him, what do you want me to do for you? It's not like he was pushing them off, but he was accepting them and getting them out of the way by answering their questions. Jesus was very gracious. He loved his disciples. He cared very much about where they were and who they were, but he was obviously self-indulged. He's about to die. And if you're about to die, I would imagine you'd be self-indulged. He was surrounded by a crowd, but he was still walking towards Jerusalem. And seemingly, he didn't answer a lot of questions. He taught as he felt it, but now, talking to John and James, he said, you don't know what you're asking. To sit at my right hand is up to God who sits there. It's not up to me. You're asking, and are you able to do the same thing that I do? Can you take the cup? Can you be crucified? They don't understand what he's saying. But Jesus stops and says, not in a lot of conversation, James and John, what do you want me to do for you? Bartimaeus, screaming at Jesus, trying to get him to stop. What do you want me to do for you? I think Jesus was depressed. I don't blame him. I'd be depressed too if I knew what was facing me at the cross. Now, by saying Jesus is depressed, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. Jesus did not sin. Depression is refusing to believe that God can take care of us. And that's a sin. Jesus made it very clear in the 7th chapter of Matthew. You shall never worry under any circumstance. You are not allowed to worry if you claim to be a Christian. It is sin to worry, and you need to stop it. Because worry says, God will not take care of me. The fact of the matter is, God will take care of you. He said he would, and if you're going to believe him, you either believe him or you don't. And once you get depressed or worried, you're not giving yourself to the faith that God has given you. You're not allowed. You are not allowed to worry. But it seems to me, as I was studying these passages, that Jesus was very uncommunicative. He was self-indulged. He knew he was facing the cross. Now let's take a look at Bartimaeus again. Bartimaeus is sitting by the side of the road begging, like he did every day. Bartimaeus was blind. He couldn't see anything. Close your eyes for a minute and imagine that that's what you see all your life. Everything you hear, everything you smell, you're not able to touch or see. You don't know what's going on, so you're stuck by the side of the road begging. Now, if he wasn't begging, he'd have no way to make money. And if he didn't make money, the Jewish tradition was that he gets kicked out of the house and then he's yourself, or if somebody couldn't support you, then you were gone. That's why Bartimaeus every day went out and went begging. And then he heard that Jesus was coming. You know, we love prophecy. The world loves prophecy. And I guess that's because we like to think that we've got some kind of control of knowledge for the future. Well, the fact of the matter is, human speaking, we have no control. We may have control, or we may think we have control over what we're going to do in the future, but we don't have any control over what the future brings us. And the fact of the matter is that prophecy coming from God may teach us something that can warn us. There's all kinds of prophecy that the Bible is filled with that warns us to be ready for who we are and where we're going. The Bible says in 1 Timothy 4, people turn from the truth and get into seducing doctrines, and then the next thing you know, they believe all kinds of things. Well, that prophecy is now being fulfilled. In order for you to see what everybody believes and thinks, all you have to do is turn on your cable. All you have to do is watch TV, and you'll see all kinds of beliefs. Reincarnation, hereafter, good, bad, ugly, things that work, things that don't work, all kinds of ideas, but very seldom do you ever hear Christ mentioned. All of us yield to seducing spirits, unless we have gotten a hold of Christ and put him in our life. The only way that we can help ourselves from getting away from this prophecy, and the prophecy is going to continue. Churches are going to continue to split. Religions are going to continue to fail. People are going to continue to commit suicide. Crime is going to be on the rise. Every time you turn around, prophecies promise you nothing but devastation and destruction. You can know that that's what's expected, and those prophecies are being fulfilled. But there are other prophecies as well. In Joel, the 2nd chapter, the 2nd verse, I will pour my spirit upon all flesh. God says he will meet all of our needs. He will work on helping us understand him. That too is a prophecy that we need to understand and believe in. The problem that you and I have got as humans is where our mind takes us is where we go. You're in church because you believe in God.